Bongbong Marcos is the political flavor of the month. He's facing 4 petitions to stop him from running for president. Everyone likes to call him the son and namesake of the late dictator Ferdinand Marcos. Even President Duterte has only harsh words for him, despite the fact that back in the 2016 elections, Mr. Duterte said he wanted Bongbong to win. But here's what's going for Marcos Jr. He's doing very well in pre-campaign surveys, and like it or not, as a former advertising executive and political strategist, Greg Garcia says,
it's a strong brand. Marcos is a strong brand.
So will he defy the odds and win in 2022? 36 years since his father was deposed. What sweet revenge and utter vindication for a family so vilified all these years. The complete rehabilitation in a referendum on EDSA 1986. The nightmare that yellow, now pink forces dread. To be sure, there have been father and child and mother and child tandems that have made it to the presidency. Diosdado Macapagal in 1961, daughter Gloria in 2001 and 2004, Cory Aquino in 1986, son Noy Noy in 2010. But one of these things is not quite like the others. Good evening, I'm Pia Ontiveros. Welcome to your weekly political appointment fix, politics as usual. Now, before we tackle the Bongbong Marcos story, let's talk about this development that broke just this morning and admittedly wasn't entirely unexpected. Longtime aide to the president, Senator Bongo, withdrawing from the race, but not without first dropping broad hints he wanted out.
Sumasagi sa isip mo yun, sir, to just withdraw?
I'm not saying na ganun po, pero nag-aantay lang po ako ng sign sa ating Panginoon.
Thank you.
Para bigyan po ako ng lakas. I'm hurting po, sa totoo lang. Nasasaktan po ako sa sitwasyon sa ngayon. So, yun po ang aking nararamdaman. Kung kailangan ko pong magsakripisyo para sa Pilipino, kailangan ko pong magsakripisyo kay Pangulong Duterte at sa pamilya. Gagawin ko po. Kasi wala naman po ako ambisyon na maging Pangulo. That is politics. Ganun po talagang politika. Who would expect na ako ang standard bearer bilang Vice President? Tapos ngayon, hindi na ako kasama sa karera. Yan po ang yan ang resulta ng politika. Diyan po ang dumi ng politika, diyan po ang init ng politika. Kaya sinabi, if you cannot stand the heat, then get out of the kitchen.
But sir, kailan po punta sa Comelec, sir, to withdraw?
Holiday ngayon eh. Ano na lang po yun, formality na lang po yung gano'n.
Well, Bongo also did say, and we quote, ayaw ko rin pong lalong maipit si Pangulong Duterte. Now, party officials who fielded Go for President say they are open to all options. Federalismo ng Dugong Dakilang Samahan, or PDDS founder Greco Bellica says the party will meet today and will also talk with the ruling PDP Laban. He says the group respects Go's decision, but it now needs direction. With Go out, who among the presidential aspirants will they support?
Well, right now, until we sit down with our leaders and our principal, the President and Senator Bongo, wala muna kami iniisip na gano'n. All options are open, and whatever's going to be best for the country and best for the party.
And without a clear lead, not only is the PDDS in a quandary, so is the president's own party or a faction of it, the PDP Laban. Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi, its president, can only say that the senator has good reasons behind his decision. Senator Ping Lacson now asking who will be the administration candidate. When asked if he's open to be endorsed, he had this to say.
Mahirap sagutin yung tanong mo. Sabi ko nga kami dalawa ni SP, determinado kami, no? Sabi nga namin, maski sino pang kaharap namin, tuloy-tuloy lang kami, no? An endorsement is an endorsement, no? No matter kung ano yung kinekere ng endorsement, it's still an endorsement. Doon na lang muna tayo, but mahirap sagutin yung open o willing o will seek, but definitely we will not seek endorsement kasi masyadong presumptuous on our part.
Well, our guests for tonight, political analyst Antonio Contreras, Professor Tonto Contreras, and Singapore-based sociologist Ash Presto. Good evening to you both, Professor Ton and Ash. You know, last week lang ang topic ko ay presidential anointments, and my guests, Ronnie Puna and Malutiki, were talking about how important it is that, you know, the president, the one who is endorsing or anointing, is very popular, and at the same time, the one he's anointing is very capable and, siguradong, a sure win. And then this, no? So, nahihilo na ba kayo or matagal na kayo nahihilo? Let's begin with Professor Tonton because he has some very interesting insights.
Well, actually, hindi ako nahihilo kasi in-expect ko na to Pia. From the very start, I looked at Philippine politics now with a different lens. That it is almost like a simulacra or something that is staged. That it is both a reality game show and a soap opera and a political event. And because of this, I told myself I need to think outside the box. That someone is writing this for us. And the only difference is that there is no prize of money. The prize is Malacanang. So I think it's something that you can always argue that the withdrawal of Senator Bongo is a sacrifice. But, because it's a sacrifice because he wanted to be vice president and then he was kicked upstairs because to give way to Sara Duterte. And yet he knows that he could not win the presidency. But he wanted to be the vice president. So it's a sacrifice. He was played. He was a pawn in the big game. But at the same time, the other side of that, you can also argue that he knows he's just playing his part. So I might be wrong, but that is how I look at the political game right now. And what triggers me to think that way, Pia, is I was told by someone that the way President Duterte plays politics is like a game of chess, that he anticipates the moves of people. So I think that's something that we need to reflect on.
So sacrifice and simulacra.
Yeah, are we being played?
Simulacra, define that again, and it is a word that will mean what? Simulated what?
Yeah, well, it's based on postmodern theory, and I think Ash would know this. It's basically,
simulated reality.
When you lose distinction of reality and what is reality, what is imagined. And it's very much like true in reality game shows where, like the Kardashians, you don't know, is it real or are they just acting? So it is now, politics is now acquiring that flavor. Ito
So
ba
parang,
ito, umaarte lang? O tunay
pagka
talaga?
baka naman we're already daydreaming, parang ganon.
Yes, so something to
Ash
that
Preso, is that right?
Yeah, or it's almost like you're in a theme park.
agree with
You don't know when this is something that is fantasy, yet it is real. You can see this. You can see the Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse, and yet they're fantasy. It's like that. Politics is like that now.
Yeah, but
it's
you know,
almost like
but for how many generations of people all over the world, no, Mickey and Minnie are real, even if they're really not.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
no,
So Santa Claus is also a simulacra. Imagine saying that it's also you see it in the malls. And
Ash.
politics has become like that. Politics has become like that.
So Ash, ito na pag-withdraw ni Bongo. Let's talk about BBM later. Yung withdrawal of Bongo.
I would like to first add to what Pia has mentioned a while ago about capability and popularity. So I would also add charisma in the mix because you need charisma to be elected for office. And we know that the President Duterte has had a lot of that in 2016. And what is different from charisma is that you have to make people believe that you're capable of doing things. Whether you're capable or not of doing these things doesn't matter. You just have to make people believe. So a lot of people believe that Duterte was can end criminality in 3 to 6 months, and until now, a lot of people still believe that. So that's charisma, and that also figures in the statement of Bongo today in his withdrawal of his candidacy. So he mentioned that he is not from known political families, and it is very interesting because we know that originally Bongo was running for vice presidency, but then the daughter, Sara Duterte, announced the candidacy, and we all know Sara Duterte is very charismatic. The last name is very charismatic. The woman is also very charismatic by herself. And afterwards, they were pushed almost at very fast pace to announce the presidential candidacy for Bongo. And we all know he is facing another very charismatic leader, which is Bongbong Marcos. So again, charisma plays a very big role in this. You don't have to be capable, you just have to make people believe that you can do this.
Ash, we're gonna talk about BBM in just a bit, no? Para we can concentrate first on Bongo. But I wanted to ask the both of you, And syempre, para bang, I'm sure lahat tayo ganun ang iniisip. Akala ba natin si Bongo, ang gusto talaga na, akala ko ba, ang gusto ni Digong na ang tumakbo ay si Bongo. And yung sagot ba doon sa tanong na yan ay simulacra? Professor Ton?
Well, like I said, I'm going to stick to my analysis. It's basically it's planned because as early as January and February, I'm already hearing all these stories coming from the south, from some reliable sources that I have, that in the end it's going to be a BBM Sara tandem.
Right.
So and it's now a BBM Sara tandem. Then someone told me that basically that's how President Duterte plays politics, like a game, like playing with pawns, where you anticipate the moves of your opponent.
Right. Okay.
And so, so it's basically something that probably it's just yung nasobrahan siya sa pag-iiyak sa TV, di ba?
Okay.
Si Bongo. So parang it's too good to be true. Parang sobra naman yata yung
Okay,
drama, di ba? Parang ganun.
Yeah, well, chess or, there's another board game made by a Filipino, Game of the Generals, where you can't see each other. But anyway, pero hindi general lang ang mga politics, yung mga politicians. We'll be back after a quick break. Stay tuned, please.
Oh, anyari sa'yo? Ba't nakasimangot ka? Alam ko na. Masakit ang katawan mo, ano? Sa sobrang trabaho? O di kaya masakit ang ulo sa sobrang stress? Break ka muna. Hinga ng malalim at imasahe ang ulo mo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Ako rin ganun eh. Kaya pag mataas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break ka muna.
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya. Sa bawat pahid ay ginhawa.
Welcome back. This is Politics as usual. Very quickly now because we don't have much time. We're still talking about Bongo. So of course, ngayon ang tanong ng tao is, sino ngayon ang kandidato ni Tatay Digong? Is it, as Professor Ton is saying, it's going to all figure under the simulacra, and then, low-ranking sa survey naman si Bongo, but at the same time, ilang boto din yan, no? At kanino yan mapupunta? So very quickly, I wanted Ash to answer that question. Ash, presto.
I think the administration has to be very adaptive enough, not only to anticipate the moves of the opposition, but also very adaptive to change tires and then be prepared to endorse another candidate. And they have been very adaptive since the start. So you've seen the very confusing mix of presidential boys, vice presidential boys now running for the Senate, vice presidential boys to presidential boys, and now withdrawing from elections. So as Prof. Contreras has mentioned a while ago, it's a game, and the administration is making sure that they win the game. At the end of the day, elections is all about winning. Elections is all about ensuring that you forge enough connections. And in the next couple of days, we will be able to see how the administration can change its gears, be adaptive enough, anticipate the moves of the opposition by endorsing a certain candidate.
All right. We're going to shift now to BBM, and the first question will still be about Bongo, no? Because the question is, how will this withdrawal of Bongo benefit Bongbong Marcos? But before that, political strategist Greg Garcia said, and I quote, BBM has a lot to thank the opposition for. What doesn't kill him makes him stronger. So, itong withdrawal ni Bongo, is it going to benefit Bongbong Marcos, Professor Ton?
Oh yeah, because many of the supporters of Bongo are natural Marcos supporters. Basically, because remember, the diehard Duterte supporters, the DDS, and the loyalists would be one cohort that supported the Duterte administration. And so they are, even if they quarreled recently because of the Go Marcos rivalry initially, they are natural allies. And the question is, who will be endorsed by the president? Endorsement could come in two ways. It could be overt and covert. Now, openly, someone can endorse one candidate, but under the table, it could be another candidate. And sometimes, in this world where you have images, sometimes even if you attack a candidate, for example, that might also be an endorsement because the attack might appear
The way
to be
President
so
Duterte has
contrived.
been attacking Bongbong Marcos.
Yes, I would even say, Pia, that for example, these recent attacks, yung unang akusasyon niya na Marcos is a communist, which is not true, and no one believes that. It's already like a staging of a lie, because if you told a lie, then no one will believe you the second time around. And that's what happened when he said, he alluded to a drug addict for a presidential candidate, and many people suspected it to be you-know-who. And so now it's almost like
And then calling also weak leaders,
inoculating, inoculating or vaccinating Marcos.
Okay.
More like binabakunahan na para hindi natabla ng mga susunod pang atake.
Oo. Itong mga attacks, so-called attacks on Marcos Jr., as he has been referred to, these are para bang yung matatawag natin parang things going against, okay, quote-unquote, going against Bongbong. At the same time, people, preferring to call him son and namesake of a dictator. Para bang pilit na kinakabit yung salitang diktador dun sa pangalan Bongbong Marcos. And then yung 4 na petitions that are filed against him to disqualify him at the COMELEC. What do you think of all of these, Ash Presto? Are these, like Greg Garcia was saying, are these just going to make him even stronger because it's not going to kill him? Ganun ba yun?
I think so, Pia. But also I want to put a hazard on just plainly saying that that Duterte has been criticizing Marcos, because Duterte, unlike any of his tirades against other presidentials, has not directly named Bongbong Marcos in all of his rants against this blind item person who comes from their political family, who is a very weak leader and who does cocaine. So he hasn't named exactly who that person is, although the allegations are very pointed. And although we know exactly who is pointing towards, he hasn't named him. So it's a very weird endorsement from the president. So if we have the kind of president we have in the Philippines, we know that as long as he doesn't directly directly go against someone, then you know that there is a very huge possibility for them to still team up. And we also know that the supporters of Duterte and Bongbong Marcos have one thing also in common, which is a nostalgia for an authoritarian rule. And Duterte supporting Bongo, who is not as charismatic as Bongbong Marcos, who doesn't produce as much nostalgia for an authoritarian rule as the last name Marcos. And you know that at the end of the day, Bongo backing out, the opening up of endorsement from Duterte will at the end of the day benefit Bongo Marcos.
Yeah, maybe that nostalgia for a return to a strongman rule is part of the so-called democracy fatigue. And these are one of the 4 things going for Bongbong Marcos, and this is what I wanted to ask you about also in the comments. So, democracy fatigue, medyo pagod na ang tao na parang nag-EDSA na tayo dati, di ba? Number 2, very motivated yung pamilya, because they can go for vindication here. And if they are vindicated, then, all they have to say, ano na EDSA nyo, di ba, noong 1986. And then sabi nga ni Greg Garcia, brand name. The Marcos is a brand name, no? And then doing well in pre-campaign surveys. We're going to talk about that when we come back. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Anyari sa'yo? Ba't nakasimangot ka? Alam ko na. Masakit ang katawan mo, no? Sa sobrang trabaho? O di kaya masakit ang ulo sa sobrang stress? Break ka muna. Hinga ng malalim at imasahe ang ulo mo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Ako rin ganun eh. Kaya pag mataas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break ka muna.
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya. Sa bawat pahid ay ginhawa.
Welcome back to Politics as Usual. We're on our final stretch. Professor Ton Contreras and Ash Presto, who's based in Singapore. Kanina, I was enumerating all these things going for BBM. What do you think of that? And at the same time, is he really the strongest candidate at this time, or are things still going to happen in this saga? Professor Ton.
I think he's the strongest. Surveys indicate. And I think the reason why Marcos resonates with people is that he has a very powerful narrative. I call it, he's a brand, but I call it the Count of Monte Cristo, the Crisostomo Ibarra narrative, an elite person
Crisostomo Ibarra.
whose family was persecuted, and then he's coming back with a vengeance. So and that is a very powerful narrative, as powerful as a poor person climbing up the political ladder. So I think that
The family is persecuted.
for him.
The family is
Yes.
persecuted now.
Yeah, the family is persecuted,
okay.
and people even perceive that he was cheated out of the victory in 2016. So it's also vengeance, it's redemption, and people love that in movies.
Okay,
That's
so
a very good sellable narrative to the masses.
okay. Ash, Presto?
I would agree to what Pia mentioned, what you mentioned a while ago about democracy fatigue, but I would also put caveat on that, because for you to have a democracy fatigue, then you should have experienced democracy in the first place. So we have been experiencing its democracy in its electoral form, but democracy in its deliberative, in its contested form is yet to be seen. So maybe you can also say that a lot of people are still disillusioned by democracy, and these can be traced from the broken promise of the EDSA revolution. For almost 4 decades after the EDSA revolution, you just have to ask one question: what happened? And you can answer that. So the support for Bongbong Marcos still remains.
This whole question about EDSA, because you have 36 years. Now, the 36 years, 29 years, where you had presidents who were in power who were well allied with EDSA or against the Marcoses to a certain extent. So that's why people are saying we had expected real change, but hindi nangyari. Kaya ganun ang, and that will explain why people want BBM now.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
No change.
Yeah.
There's no change.
Okay. Kanina nabanggit mo, Professor Tono, 2016. I remember Lenny was saying that she'd run if Bongbong would run so that she could stop him. But she squeaked past him by like 200,000 votes in 2016 in the VP race. But what's it going to be like now? Because the surveys don't put Lenny, very high up there. So, paano na?
So you really have to ask, if indeed Lenny won in 2016, you have to ask, why are the numbers like that? Maybe things happened. Maybe I will explain that first of all, Lenny was really savage by bad BR by coming from the diehard Duterte supporters. And second, it is the perception also about, is it really true now? Nasasabi tuloy mga tao, minsan, pag ganyan ang number, ito po nga pa talagang dinaya siguro si Bongbong. Nakakadagdag yan doon ngayon sa vengeance, redemption narrative. That, abay, dito na tayo kasi ito ay dinaya. Kasi nakikita ngayong numbers.
Pero, ngayon, tama bang sabihin? Kasi, some people are saying, the opposition, I mean, the Lenny, you can't say the Dilawan, the Kakampings, are saying, if you don't vote for Lenny, then Bongbong will win. So it's going to be your fault. Tama ba yun, Ash?
That is the assumption that democracy is just all about elections. So a lot of activities can still be considered as democratic. And of course, Prof. Ton will agree with that even revolutions, rallies, and et cetera, will be considered as under the realm of democracy. So only people can tell if that is the way that is a logical result of people not voting for Lenny Robredo. But also, I would like to add that a lot of the allegations against Lenny Robredo is very woman biased. So a lot of biases against her come from the fact that she is a widow, that she's a woman, and she's been branded as just a housewife by a lot of politicians right now. And this plays into a lot of the sexism culture in the Philippines, which also still fuels the candidacy of Duterte for senator and then Bongbong Marcos as president.
We have to end right now. We have to end right now because it is 8:55. But I just want to say that Ash's background, although she's Singapore-based, is the Ilocos Sur, the famous Ilocos Sur. See, because you're from there,
Yes.
and you did say earlier before the show that there is that solid vote for Marcos kahit papaano. But anyway, we've run out of time, so thank you so much for joining us tonight. Political analyst Professor Ton Contreras and Singapore-based sociologist Ash Presto. Maraming salamat. We've been told before, don't talk politics at the dinner table or at a family reunion or in Viber groups and risk digital warfare. But we can talk about it here at this table on the show, your weekly political appointment fix, politics as usual. I'm Pia Ontiveros. See you back here next Tuesday, 8:30 p.m.
O sa'yo? Ba't nakasimangot ka? Alam ko na. Masakit ang katawan mo, ano? Sa sobrang trabaho? O di kaya masakit ang ulo sa sobrang stress? Break ka muna. Hinga ng malalim at imasahe ang ulo mo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Ako rin ganun eh. Kaya pag mataas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break ka muna.
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya. Sa bawat pahid